Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Bill, and this is my new podcast, Where Spirit Meets Science. So let me tell you a little bit about that and how this kind of came to be. Um, if those that know me know that I'm an actual PhD natural products chemist. I've been in the industry of developing nutritional supplements for more than 25 years. But in parallel to that, there's also been this journey for me on a spiritual nature where I was the scientist opening up to my own spiritual journey. So that's what started it. And I guess you can bring us up to today's technology and where we're able to do this by video podcast. Now, I've spent years actually doing public speaking on this topic and writing my books and working on those and my different writings. But now this gives me another vehicle to kind of bring this, what I call healing into the world. So everybody has their own journey. This is mine, and I hope that whatever we share in this journey together through this podcast and through my writings, which I'll be sharing some of that, will guide you on your own journey and something that resonates with you will help you move on your journey and your path. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, start with a guided meditation, and we'll do that in each podcast. And that this is to create a sacred space. I hopefully that if you're watching this, you're in a comfortable place with no distractions, no phones, that sort of thing, and take time to do that. So let's get comfortable, and we'll start with a guided meditation here. And by the way, if those of you that don't meditate, there, or you want to learn to meditate, you can go to my website at williamdavidclark.com. There are some guided meditations there. I will be adding some more to that as well. And as a scientist, I can tell you there are truly benefits to meditation. And so, like the latest research, just let me highlight a couple things for you. And you've heard that it helps reduce stress and that sort of thing, but there's actually real scientific data to show that meditation definitely does these things. So even this year, there was a study that showed reduced stress, immune system enhancement, right? It boosted your immune system, cognitive improvements, so you're sharper, thinking better, and cardiovascular benefits. Okay, this is just one example, but there are many, many studies now that have shown the benefits of meditation. So when people ask me, hey, Dr. Bill, what do I take for this when they're asking me about supplements? I say, well, look, it's a full holistic approach, and that is, mind, body, and spirit. So yes, you need to exercise, you need to eat right, and taking supplements is great, but then you also need a spiritual practice. Okay, something that's going to enhance that. Meditation, yoga, these sorts of things are going to be beneficial to you. So let's start with the meditation. I'm going to play some music in the background and invite you to get into a comfortable position right now. And we'll take you through that. And this is the best way to start meditation if this is new to you. And that isn't a guided way where someone's talking and guiding you through that. There'll come a point as you practice this. It's just like anything else. You practice it and you become better at it. And for me, I started with guided meditation many, many years ago, and then I've taught it since then. But the meditation is something that will evolve as you evolve on your spiritual path. And so what helps are tools like a guided meditation to get you started. And you find what resonates with you. Maybe it's not me, maybe it's some other guided meditation that works for you. That's fine. You can do whatever you want there. And then you'll learn that you won't need that at some point, and then you will be able to do this on your own as well. So let me start some music. Not that music. Sorry, that's the intro. Okay, so take a minute to close your eyes. And we're going to take 3 or 4 deep cleansing breaths. Okay. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just take the first breath. as you're breathing in and out, let go of all the thoughts, worries, the things that you've been sitting with at this moment. They're not important at this time. You breathe in and breathe out. And continue to go deeper into this state and relax wherever you're sitting. Breathe in and breathe out. Allow yourself to be transported to a space of energy and time. If a thought comes into your mind, just let it pass by as the clouds pass by through the sky. Give it no thought. Breathe in and breathe out. Release energetically those things that no longer serve you. Instead, focus your attention on your breathing into the openness of what's going to reveal to you today. Breathe in, breathe out. And as we come back into this space here, we feel situated, ready to receive whatever messages or inspiration that resonate with us. Continue to breathe. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And just feel a sense of peace and that energy that's all around you and within you. We're in this time together to just explore spirit meets science. So, what does that actually mean? And where did that come from? Um, Obviously, this is my own spiritual journey because I was the scientist before kind of my spiritual awakenings started, my door opened, as you would say. But I can relate back to the time I was a boy, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I've always been fascinated by science. Okay, I used to watch Jacques Cousteau and undersea adventures and stuff like that. So I guess I was always an explorer in that sense. And I think if you're going to embrace yourself into a spiritual journey, for sure you're going to be curious and want to ask. And I think that's the difference between when somebody does actually embark on that or doesn't. And there's no right or wrong way, there's no certain age. But at some point, as sentient beings within our lives, whether it's early in our life or even later, it doesn't matter. We come to stop all of a sudden and question, and maybe an experience you're having at the time or something that triggers for you. And then you suddenly ask yourself, why am I here? Think about that. Why are we all here? And it's going to be a different answer for everyone. But if you think about it, if you look up at the stars at night and think about all that exists, you can't help but postulate or question, why am I here? And the universe may answer you back, as it's done for me many times. But even as a boy, I can remember I was always an explorer. I wanted to see things and do things. And I'll share with you a story that was kind of interesting. So there was this, I grew up in upstate New York, Rochester, New York, and I lived in a little suburb called Fairport. And there was a lot of pine trees then. This is a long time ago. And there were smaller pine trees, medium size, and they're really, really big ones. So big that you could stand underneath the base of them and um, feel lost in there like a cave. That's how big some of these trees can get. Of course, now I'm a boy, so I'm smaller. So yes, everything seemed bigger then. If I went back there today as an adult, if the tree is still there, I'd probably say to myself, wow, this is not as big as I remember it. But the experience still exists in terms of when you have an experience, the impact it makes on you. And it was myself and some other boys, and I don't remember who, but we were all going to climb the tree, the big tree. We're going to climb the big tree, and this is pretty tall. It's above the rooftops of two-story houses, probably 3 stories high. And I remember thinking, uh, if anybody's ever climbed a pine tree, you'll notice that there's a lot of branches, and as you get closer to the top, it gets more narrow. It's more branches. It's very sappy. This is what a pine tree is like. But you can't quite get to the very pinnacle of the tree unless you push your way through all the tree limbs. And isn't life like that? You come up against things that are difficult, things that are challenges. But you could either have two choices. You could give up and stop, or you can push through to the other side. Because really pushing through on the other side and climbing this tree is a metaphor for that, opens you to the experience of something new. And for me, many of the boys, we were all climbing, and several of them got scared and went down. So, no, I can't go to the top. Because when you get closer to the top, the wind's blowing and the tree starts to sway. And you feel the energy of that. And even as a small boy, you could feel that. So it starts to move more with you putting weight on the top of the tree. And I remember pushing through to the top, to the branches. I was determined to see from the top. Okay. And I pushed through, and I remember looking out. It was a beautiful summer day, and looking all around, and I could see over everything. And the breeze was blowing. I could hear the birds, and the tree would just sway. And in that moment, for that moment, there was a connection with all that is, we should say, or all that energy of creation and everything. It was an incredibly beautiful experience. And I know you've experienced this, whether you've seen a sunset or you look into the face of a newborn baby's eyes, or many, many types of things. It stops you for that moment and connects you with that energy. So for me, seeing all of that, I was like, incredible. This is like an amazing experience. And then reality set in, and suddenly the tree started to really move. And then I went, oh no, I need to go down. And so, but you get to the other side of that experience, whatever it is for you. I'm sure you've got something. If you're watching this, you've had an experience of some sort. And at least once in your life, if not many times, most likely many times. And you've wondered, why am I here? What's the purpose of all of this? And so for me, that started at a very young age. Of course, I didn't have any concept of spirituality or anything like that at that age, not so much. Yes, my grandfather was Episcopal minister. He had churches all over the state of Florida, but we only get to go to his church a couple times. So we lived up in upstate New York, so I didn't have that experience. I'll talk more about my grandfather in some future episodes. Pretty amazing man. Pretty incredible stories to tell there, and it's actually the basis for one of my books. as well. But again, it comes down to real simply that everyone is on their own spiritual journey. Okay. And there's no right or wrong way for that to happen. There's no timing for that. Time doesn't exist. Seriously. It's time's the fourth dimension. There is no such thing as linear time. Everything exists in one place at the same time. I know that sounds complicated, but it truly is that way. We have a tendency to simplify things as human beings, to normalize in ways that we can comprehend. But at the end of the day, comprehending the expansiveness of the universe and why we're here, you can spend hours doing that. So for me, that started when I was a young boy. And I went through my life, and by the way, there's more to that story I'll tell in a future episode, an experience I had. But it was in the year 2000, 24 years ago, almost to the day, in August, about mid-August, year 2000. Kind of coincidence that it's the beginning of the 21st century. So up until that point, I'd been learning to meditate. I'd started writing, journaling, I would say. I highly recommend you do that. It's a good idea to have a notebook and start writing down your experiences, and whether they make sense or not, whether it's something that's important to you, you should write it down. And I'm not talking about like a diary, like today I get up and I had this for breakfast, or whatever. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these questions or experiences that cause you to take a step back and say, hey, why am I here? So for me, something pretty amazing happened in 2000. I was in the middle of the night, and very difficult to explain how this happens. But again, I was at that time, I was already, I already had my PhD in chemistry. I received that in 1997. So I think the universe said, okay, Dr. Bill's ready for the next step. As the scientist established, and it's several years and a lot of work to acquire a PhD. It's a hard science, and it's not easy. A lot of people don't make it, but and you learn a lot from that. And one thing you learn on this path of getting a PhD in a hard science like that or something is um, that what you think before that, that experience, is that everything is black and white, that there is no, it's real simple. And we as human beings tend to simplify things. And the media, well, that's what they do. They simplify things and make it very simple. But really, things are much more complex than that in life, as you know, and much more gray. It's not all black and white. So one thing you learn when you're going through to get your PhD in chemistry is that it isn't black and white. And it's as you expand your sphere of knowledge, right? You also raise more questions, because think of it as a bubble growing. As you learn more and learn more on the surface, it only raises more questions. So you're always learning. Same thing with a spiritual journey, spiritual path. Once you embark on that, your experience evolves and grows, because if there's any constant in the universe, is things change. Now, we in our egos try to hold on to that and try to keep things from changing. That's not how things happen. So it only raises more questions. So that was just that experience of getting my PhD was that. So here I am in 1987. I got my PhD. I'm year's 2000 now. I've started to journal. I've started to try and meditate and really explore my spiritual path. When suddenly someone like turned on the light switch, it was like night and day. I'm not kidding. When my door, my awakening, my spiritual to everything that exists on the other side opened up. And as a scientist, for many years, I would keep these two different paths separate, science and the spiritual path. And at some point, I said to myself, No, this is who I am. This is part of who I am. And actually, doing this podcast is the first time to do it in this sort of vehicle. Um, like I said, I've done public speaking for years, and this is groups of, 30 to 50 people on a weekly basis and like-minded individuals. So going out into the world, especially with my writing, I've shared a lot of my writings, my poetry, these sorts of things. I'm going to share some today with you. And I would have a tendency to keep those things separate, but I'm not doing that anymore. So the universe kind of told me, inspiration messages and meditation said, okay, it's time. And I think kind of what started this is because uh, everything's moving towards video podcasts. And if you follow me in my professional career, you know that we started a podcast in March called the Bioactive Nexus. And then it occurred to me, and I had only planned to just publish my books, and I thought, well, maybe I'll do public speaking again, whatever. And I said, oh, you know what, we should do a podcast in this too. So why not? So that is why uh, I started to do it in this vehicle now, 24 years later. But this has been a decades long journey for me in terms of my spiritual path. One thing I learned in all these years is that I used to think to myself, well, who am I going to inspire? Who's inspired by that? And I would share my experiences and stories, which are so many. And I would people would come up to me later and tell me how it impacted them or how it touched them in some way. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I never thought of myself as in this sort of fashion, that I was the scientist. But also on this, being the scientist on this path, it led me to question and validate my experiences. And to the point where many years later, I can tell you there's no other way to explain it except that it does exist. And as I share some of these experiences with you over time, as you continue to sit with me on this journey, you will come to be amazed by that as well, and actually start to realize that you've probably had some of your own experiences. Maybe you didn't see them at the time. Uh, when I use the term when we're on our spiritual path that we follow the spiritual breadcrumbs. So one thing about being a scientist is that you have to be curious. Okay. And a scientist in its in his core or her core is the nature of asking questions and saying, okay, how is that possible? Right. And you do that. Same thing with your spiritual path. Things are going to evolve, things are going to happen in your experiences, but only if you're open to following those spiritual breadcrumbs and immersing yourself into that journey. When you do that, it's like I shared earlier, climbing the tree, you get to the other side of that, then things will be revealed to you. And it's no great discovery in science ever happened from going from point A to point B in a straight line. The real discoveries happen on the journey off to the side. So it's like you can't be a racehorse with blinders on. You have to take off the blinders and be exploring all around you as you're on this journey, because you will see something in everything. And this is the way of your path. So this is, now as speaking as a scientist, one of the things I explored is like, well, how when I started to have these experiences, and I didn't share the details of this experience I had in 2000 that opened my door, so to speak, but it was like night and day. And literally, I started to have all kinds of experiences almost nightly where I would have connections with spirit, the other side, that sort of thing. And most people think, oh yeah, that doesn't really happen. Yeah, it's happened in ways that I cannot explain, except that it has to be real. And I know this for a fact because I feel it within my soul. And if you think about it from a scientific point of view, our bodies are elements primarily of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, right? This is what we're made of. And each of those elements are made up of energy. And energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. And goes back to basically physics in terms of Newtonian physics, I would call it. And we'll talk about quantum physics in some time because I'm fascinated with that. But this is the first law of thermodynamics, or the law of conservation of energy. Okay, for those of you who are scientists, you may remember studying this. Those who are not, there are, at least as we know today in the science we know today, there are proven concepts in terms of these sorts of concepts that have been put down until something else comes along that says otherwise in terms of the science as we know it today. But the reality is everything is energy. So if you think about that for a minute, right? Not only is everything energy, but then everything is connected. And when you have these experiences, and maybe you have, there's something more to that than you can explain. And energy just simply transforms. Again, it's not created or destroyed. And this has been proven by experimentation and such, at least in the science as we know today. So that led me to postulate or say, well, okay, I'm a scientist. Okay, these things are happening. So this is just another form of energy that I'm experiencing, and I'm the detector, so to speak, that has the ability to tune in and connect to that frequency or that vibrational energy that exists there. And that's a simple way to kind of think about it. Can I explain scientifically all the details of the different experiences I've had for years? Not really, but it's a cause and effect thing where something happened and the effect was I knew something, or things happened that wasn't possible for me to even know in my experience. So how do you explain that, right? So this is what led me on this journey to explore, and then I think I coined the term spirit meets science. And I went back and forth. Is it science meets spirit, or is it spirit meets science? Kind of like a chicken and egg thing. But the reality is, it's it's all one thing. It's all connected. And so, again, I will be sharing many of my personal experiences to illustrate and validate for you. But what this also led me to, as kind of my door opened up and I started to feel these things and see these things, is that I started to write. So let me explain a little bit about my process, because when this door opened up, this is when things opened up for me to start writing. And I was journaling. It's not the same thing. I was journaling, but it was in, I think, 2008. Maybe it was 2008, somewhere around there. Again, been working towards uh, practicing meditation, doing these sorts of things, doing writing, reading, a lot of reading a lot of different books, um, studying various spiritual teachings. There's a lot of common themes in all of them, and I'll talk about some of that in our show. Um, and just like I said, being the scientist or being curious as to how these things happen, because the people who wrote these things down before me had experiences, right? And I was having my own. And then somewhere around 2008, 2009, I think, is when I wrote my first poem. And I'm going to share that with you in just a minute. And how did that happen? So when I was writing, I was sitting down, I was meditating or whatever, and suddenly it's almost like it's not me, that's kind of this energy that flows through, and the words just come. And same thing with the poem. So I write inspirational poetry and love poems as well. Because what is the greatest energy of all? And that's the energy of love. And it's really simple in going through life and our experiences that we can either live it in love or live it in fear. And if we're afraid, we're going to be closed off. We're not going to go through the top of that treetop. We're not going to go to the other side because we're scared. That's the ego talking. You need to set the ego down like a little child in a chair and say, it's going to be okay. We can do this. We're going to go explore because there's more to this existence that we have. So for me, when the writing started like that, is just experiences in themselves to write these beautiful poems. And then when poems are interesting because it's a different kind of writing than the inspirational writing that I would do. Um, and I would capture that first verse in that connection. And once I captured that, the rest of the poem would flow in terms of the words coming to me and the experience that I was trying to convey of that. So I'd like to say that it's actually me. It is and it isn't, but it is something much more than that in terms of the divine flowing through me and as me. So these poems, this is my process. This is how it happens. And same thing with my spiritual path evolved into spiritual waking. It used to be kind of just in the middle of the night when I'm in that relaxed state. Maybe it's a certain alpha state, whatever, where I'm receptive to receiving messages. And it's beyond dreaming, by the way. I should clarify this is not dreaming. I'm not dreaming about it. It's experiences that actually I feel where I am awake. And but then it began to evolve where it happened all the time. So this is how that happened. So it's just years in the process there. But it was always being open to accepting and receiving what would come in. So let me share the first poem. Why not? Let's share the first poem of something that I wrote. And by the way, this is my book of poetry is called Divine Whispers, Poems of Love and Spirit. And you can read about this on my website at williamdavidclark.com. So I haven't published yet. I'm getting ready to do that. But this first poem is what I call the mystic's acceptance. So you embracing your spiritual journey or taking that step to go into your spiritual journey, you are a mystic. You are the mystic. And it's your acceptance of being ready to receive what comes to you in that journey. So this is the mystic's acceptance. When life's challenges deal you a horrible blow, when the cracks in your armor start to show, let it be and know it is. When those you once loved begin to fade, when the power of the infinite brings light to your shade, let it be and know it is. When you feel that your heart can take no more, when you see a wave crashing on a distant shore, let it be and know it is. When some days you feel like you want to die, when you see a hawk circling up in the sky, let it be and know it is. For these are the callings of the mystic, the journeys of your soul with the infinite. For you are not what you see, but only the answer and how to be. So let go and embrace the light, for it is eternal power and full of light. This is your time to move forward with activation and become one with the glorious path of co-creation. So this first poem was, at the time, I was going through a major transition in my life, and a lot of different things, as we all do. We always have life experiences that bring us to these contemplation moments. And for me, I wrote it down, and that's how it came to me in that sense. Um, and, we have, as I was just saying, we do have these incredible experiences, but again, we can run up against these and be afraid of it and stop ourselves and move into a state of fear in that energetic space of being afraid. And we need to be kind to ourselves and love ourselves and say, hey, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Whatever these things, lost loves, lost loved ones, whatever these things that happen in our life, the major experiences that happen, uh, have an impact. One thing to remember is that as you go through these experiences, when one door closes, another one opens. Now, in my professional career, I didn't do the normal thing, go work for a company and work for them for 20, 30, 40, 30 years. No, it's not what I did. I took my journey in my professional life kind of where it led me to the point where I've developed this incredible diverse experience in everything that I've done in my industry. And even before that, there was another industry that I participated in. I call in a previous life of mine. I'm older than I look, and but it's the same for you. Now, some people are comfortable with that and it can do that sort of thing. But for me, as the scientist, the explorer, asking questions, I always wanted to know more and do more. So never be afraid to ask those questions of yourself and to embrace uh, what comes. Don't be afraid to take those steps to move forward because it's all good. Everything you've experienced, good or bad, is created who you are today. And how could we not appreciate the concept of love or experiencing the beauty of that if we haven't had the other awful experiences or bad experiences in our life to contextually see the difference? Again, it's like light and dark. When you turn on the light, you can see everything. When you're in the dark, you're uncertain. You don't know. You just have to turn on the light switch. Now, let me share another excerpt from one of my other books that's upcoming. And that one is called, or that book is called, excuse me, that book is called Quantum Grace, Contemplations for the Spiritual Journey. So, this is a compilation of things that I've been writing. I used to do a blog and things that I've spoken to over the years. So I'm in the process of compiling all these different messages. So I don't know if you've ever read something I can think of in an analogous way is the Tao Te Ching, which is the Book of the Way, written 25 years ago by Lao Tzu. And there are 81 verses, I would call it, or messages. They're not poems, but it is a poetry. You could think of a form of poetry. But within each of those is a message and part of the contemplation of the spiritual journey. So when I started to come up with the title of this book, I thought how appropriate to call it Quantum Grace, being the scientist and quantum mechanics and quantum energy and all that. And I said, well, it is kind of that, right? So Quantum Grace, Contemplations for the Spiritual Journey, that will be my second book to come out after the book of poetry. But let me share with you one of the messages in that. And by the way, each of the messages that I share uh, has and they're short message, something you can do one a day or something like that. But within that will be an affirmation and a meditation to do based on that concept of what that is. So let me share with you this first one, which is called The Power of Surrender embracing your inherent worth. Okay? Sometimes, often without even knowing, we can try so hard that we push away or destroy the very thing that we love or desire. Our society programs us to perform, to compete, and to achieve greatness to show our worth, but this is an illusion. For you do not have to prove anything to anyone. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way you are right now, in this moment. You are already greatness. Surrender to the process of allowing. Trust in the one source to transform your life. Be one with it. Let go of the need to prove your worth to others. Look within to see what is driving you, and if it no longer serves, then shed it so something new can come forth and grow. Set clear intentions of what you desire. Feel the joy in them, and then release them into the universe. Take the inspired action that follows. When you make this your daily practice, the very thing that you love and desire will miraculously show up in your life. You are worthy. So let's sit with that for a minute and contemplate that. And again, you can go back to listen to this video again if you want to hear that repeated. But I also have a blog on my website, and so that one, actually, the one I just read to you, is actually on my website. So you can go back and read that again. Okay? Now, like I said, each of these inspirational messages were inspired by me from some experience I was having in my life. And sometimes I couldn't explain it, it would just happen. So one of the things as part of a spiritual practice you can develop in addition to meditation. So in this case, there's a message on how to do the meditation. And I'll read to you the instructions for that. And that is the first, capture an image in your mind of yourself doing something great. Write down your intentions in your journal. Okay. And then visualize this as you being worthy of this greatness. Feel the energy of that moment and then feel it move through you. Breathe into it as you do your meditation. And so this is a process. This is a journey. Okay. And it's not like a class in school that you've got to complete at a certain time frame and get a certain grade. Okay, nobody's going to grade you on this. And it's really important that you don't be hard on yourself as you go through this process. You, like me, will find it frustrating to meditate at first. It's like, man, I keep thinking about this. I keep doing that. Even sometimes for myself. I don't care if you're a Zen master or a newbie, you still have the same things to deal with, okay? It's not like you become an enlightened Zen master, that nothing bothers you anymore. No, we're still human beings living in this life, and but it's switching that dichotomy to be the spiritual being having a human experience versus the human being having a spiritual experience. It's a big difference. Affirmations are another way to reinforce something within yourself because, like I said, everything is energy. So guess what? So are words. And what you say is powerful energy that you create. So whatever you're saying about yourself, your self-talk, the things that you're doing, is what you're going to experience in your life, because what you think about expands. So it's really important to um, think of, to mind your thoughts, because thoughts are energy, they're powerful, and you can create things from that. And there's some actually a little bit of research on that as well, and we'll talk more about that in a future show. Um, but the affirmation is something like, I am worthy. And believing that within yourself. So the difference is not only saying it, because as we read it, as we say it out loud, we hear it, and then we feel it through meditation or whatever, then it becomes a part of us. Okay. And the same thing on your spiritual path. As you have these experiences, they're going to make an imprint on the essence of who you are. Okay. And we sit with those. And the best time actually to do these affirmations is right before you go to sleep. You know, as a general rule, I think the advice of folks today is like, don't be looking at your cell phone in bed before you go to sleep, okay? Or watch a scary movie or whatever. Set it aside, turn it off, turn it on silent for an hour before. Don't look at it. I know it's tough, but resist the temptation about that, because you also need to be present with yourself. So do that. So I invite you to, with each of these shows, as we talk about these different meditations, and as we do the meditations, that you can write down the information stuff. So get yourself a journal and start to do that. I've had multiple journals because I filled them up for years now. I love my latest one, Paul. This one's really cool looking. This is looks like uh, an ancient tome, so to speak. Uh, I have fun writing in that one. So do that um, for yourself. Okay, so we're approaching near the end of our time here for this first session, first introduction here to Where Spirit Meets Science. So I encourage you to find a guided meditation, something that works for you. You can use mine on my website. I actually recorded those years ago, and people have used those and found them to be great. Or find something else. Find guided meditation elsewhere that works for you. And then again, get a journal to write down your insights and messages. Okay. Looking ahead, my goal is to do this on Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings my time. So again, that's 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific if you're listening from the Pacific time. But I know I will have followers. This is the other beauty of doing a video podcast, is that I'll have followers actually all over the world. So this is pretty amazing to me, that we live in this kind of global connection here. And again, everything's connected. So don't forget that. But there'll be different topics. I'll usually share something of my writing. We'll do the meditation. And also there'll be, I think there's some folks that I know that we might have on as guests. Possibly we can discuss different topics. We'll see how that goes. Again, go to my website. It's williamdavidclark.com. And you can subscribe or sign up for my newsletter. So as I post something on the blog there, or upcoming video podcasts are all going to be there. And again, these will be, right now we're live streaming to LinkedIn and Facebook, my profiles. I'll continue to do that. And then there will be hosted on Spotify, and then it'll go to through RSS distribution to multiple platforms. So, but for sure, you can find everything on the website. And again, on the website, you'll find a little bit about me, a little more detail about me. You find some inspirational quotes. And by the way, all the photography you see and all the artwork, everything is everything that I've created. This is all, your spiritual journey can take many forms in terms of expression. And so anything from photography to Japanese sumi black ink painting, which I started years ago, which is kind of fun. And then again, there's the guided meditations there. Those are hosted on SoundCloud. And then you'll see there's four books. Literally, I've been working on these books for years. Um, I'm just formalizing the titles and descriptions. And again, those are on the website. I will let you know if you certainly subscribe and follow you, and you'll learn when my book of poetry gets published, and stay in contact that way. Okay. So let's close out our session with a blessing. Okay, this is what I'll do with each podcast, so that we can go forth in peace and energy. So again, let's take a minute to close our eyes and take a few breaths. Breathing in, then breathing out. Breathe in, breathe out. Take a moment to absorb what you heard today. Feel that within you. Whatever messages come to you, write them down, and then take some time to meditate after and explore that path for you of what those mean to you. And as you come back into your life, your day to day, whatever, be open to things that or be new that may show up for you. Okay? Go forth in peace, in love, in harmony. Again, this is the path that we want to take. Sometimes we fall into fear, but we can shift the energy, do something fun to shift the energy, whether it's listening to music, reading something, whatever, and move that space, do a meditation, whatever. Because this is where you find your inspiration. Okay? Thank you for listening today. And thank you for joining me on this journey. It will be an amazing journey, I can tell you. I am quite sure that someday I will be doing some public speaking again, sometime down the road in the near future. And when those events happen, certainly let you know about that. I'm continuing to work on my writing daily. This is a constant process. It's a constant learning process. It'll be the same for you. So again, it doesn't matter if you're just starting or you're a spiritual seeker for years or you're just curious. There's something here for you. So with that, I'll let you go to your day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you next time on Where Spirit Meets Science.